Action item, we have one donation to present to you, and the CW Group would like to donate a little over $14,000, so $14,320 worth of spiritware for Ottawa Hills High School. And it appears they are all shirts, sport shirts.
What's the CW
Looks like
group?
so.
Who is the CW group?
I honestly don't have any idea. I worked with Mr. Harris, the AD over at Ottawa Hills, presented this to me.
Do I have a motion to move this forward to the full board?
Motion to approve the donation from the CW group.
Support. Any further questions regarding it?
Call the roll. Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Keatson?
Yes.
Dr. Feld?
Yes.
Motion granted.
I'll follow up with information on
Just
CW,
wondered what it was.
because it's good information to
There
have.
was something,
Yep,
It's nice to acknowledge, too.
with that.
it is
It's
nice
always
to be
nice
on
to
there.
acknowledge if we know
Yeah.
them, or
I agree.
With the grant application, the second action item, this is our first time through this, so I'm thinking going forward, whoever's going to be heading up the finance committee, that form we had talked about after the board retreat or something like that, I think would be helpful for this. So, there isn't the details that aren't going to concern us. But I'm wondering if you could summarize for us what it entails, what the larger context, the pros and cons for the district, and, the larger
For this particular one?
ramifications for it on a broad scale.
Yep, so this Section 22I grant through the state, it's state money. What they did in the approved budget, the approved state aid budget, is they used some of our general foundation dollars and put this money into a pot to specifically prepare districts for the online growth assessments that will be here in 2014, 2015. The document came out right before Thanksgiving, the initial grant document, really detailing this work. There are 5 different categories, and it was about a 50-page document, which, after everybody read, caused all kinds of concerns, especially with the Category 1, which is this first phase, which is what we're presenting for you today, because that one would represent $10 per student, so it puts us over our 100.
So that's that $16 million figure, that's the amount allocated by the state, and we can get a portion of that?
Yes,
Or that $16 million
that is
is
correct.
all for us?
That is not all for us.
Okay.
That's the entire state pot.
Okay.
So for everybody across, all school
That's what I
districts across the state. Yep, good question. For us, it'd represent $10 a student, so a little over $170,000. The concerns mainly in this first category were they are trying to create these state networks, trying to pool resources to get a better buying power, essentially. The concerns across the state were, what if we already have this great deal set up, and now you're telling us when this contract expires, we're out on our own, but yet you're not ready to move this whole process forward. There was a timing concern of if our contract, for example, expires in June, but the state doesn't have this network established until in August or a September, are we now stuck with higher costs that we're going to have to pay for a July and August? We have been assured, and they've heard from everybody across the state, is my understanding, with all of those types of concerns, that districts already have collaborations in place that are yielding cost savings, and all of a sudden now, in order to get any of this money to do anything, we have to, when that agreement ends, not realize those savings. So what the state is asking us to do, and at this time, what they're asking everybody to do, and our conversations with the other districts in the ISD have kind of been the same thing. If you don't get in now, you don't ever get in. If you get in now and decide as they flush out more of the detail, and they're working with districts. I'm not going to sit here and say they're off on their own and are ignoring what we're saying. They are listening to the concerns that are being raised across the state. But if we don't get in now, any of the other categories that we would want to participate in, there's no chance to get in. And then if we get in and we decide, as all the fine details are fleshed out, that we really don't want to participate, then we would just simply have to return the funds. We would hold on spending anything. We do have a team in the district. We have someone from our assessment office has been attending meetings along with someone from the budget office and someone from management information systems. So we have, and then somebody from the academic side, excuse me. So we have several people who've been in this from the ground and working with the state, attending any type of informational meetings that the ISD has held, that the state has held. We actually had a few of them that went to a meeting that was held by the state. And then a couple weeks ago, I believe the ISD had an informational session for its participants as well.
Do we see any potential cost savings for us based upon this grant? And is there any additional?
There could be. Have we gone out and said, it just depends on what the state can get
Right.
in their build
Is there any
from this networking.
any additional administrative cost related to this grant?
Well,
Or
there's
will it
always,
be allocated to the
there's
existing
always
staff?
unforeseen administrative costs. I mean, and part of this, one of the things we had to do was complete a technology readiness survey that was rather lengthy in itself. So it did take staff time to go and do that. It was pretty extensive. So there's things of that nature. Would we have to hire somebody new to be able to participate? I don't believe so.
It seems there's always a lot going on, and $10 a student, obviously, it sounds like a decent amount of money. But from a district budget standpoint, it sounds like maybe more harm than it's. It doesn't seem like there's much benefit. I mean, it's a little bit of finances, but I know, Tim, how much is that per student roughly? I mean, for the district.
170 grand.
Around 170,000 we would receive.
And that's just for phase one.
And that's just right, exactly.
Can I just recap so I can understand this?
Sure, I know.
I don't know if I
it's
do.
a pretty lengthy one.
So we currently have, if the state hadn't come out with this, we currently would have technology. We'd be working on technology to get us ready for this growth assessment.
We would have to do something.
We would have to do something.
Right.
Okay. And so they're looking for a unified system across the state, as much buy-in as possible, right?
Correct.
And, but our concern is that theirs isn't going to necessarily be the best option cost-wise, or it might not be up and running in time, or.
It's probably more the concern of the timing,
Okay,
and when our current agreements expire.
okay.
And when they would have this ready.
And then, but there's further grant money down the line for
There
further
is.
participation
That's correct.
in doing
To
this.
do various things, which are the different categories that are listed on. I know it's kind of a lengthy document.
But districts can bail at any time and return the money if it looks like the whole thing is a wash or not gonna pan out or gonna be
Correct,
problematic.
as long as you can bail after this category one, and as long as you're not spending anything, there's no harm to you.
Okay.
So as we continue to work through, if we agree to apply, we just go on and we go on the state grant application system, check mark our grant box that says we would like to apply, and then we continue to work with the ISD. And if at any point in time we want to say, this isn't for us.
So
then
is
we just
is
back
the
out.
ISD getting grant money as well, or is it just?
Yeah, part of the, some of the categories talk about the ISDs and having collaboration between ISDs and large districts, ISDs and ISDs. They're really trying to do big groups. I guess it's just to continue to do that better buying power for networking and all of that wiring and all of that, versus Grand Rapids going on their own and, a little tiny rural district having to go on their own and negotiate and having to pay twice as much as us. Certainly districts like
So what
us
are-
will help the state.
What are smaller districts going to be doing then that don't get this allocation of funds?
If you don't apply for it,
Yeah.
I don't know what some of the districts will do across the state, honestly. Because if everybody is going to be doing online growth assessments in 2014, 2015, I'm not certain. I don't know if any of them will be going out for a bond, be able to do some of that work.
This needs to be decided by December 20th. I saw a date in here or something.
Yep, we have to apply by the end of this week.
It seems, I don't know, maybe I'm just not really clear. It seems convoluted enough to would be worthy of some more discussion. And obviously, like right now, I'm thinking I'd like to be a full discussion piece, but by December 20th, obviously that's. So how long have we known about this little deal anyway?
It came out right before Thanksgiving, the full-blown details of what this looked like.
Is it the recommendation of the administration to
It
proceed
is
with this grant?
It's the recommendation of the administration that we apply for category 1, and then we'll follow it, and if we don't feel that it's anything that would benefit us in the end, then we would follow up with recommendation that we
I'm concerned that we
discontinue
might forget that
participation.
we can do that. You know what I mean? I mean, you know, work happens, especially with transformation plan stuff going on. I'm concerned that, you know, relatively, I don't know, we would forget that we have that. Kind of like how you buy into a little deal where they keep mailing it to you unless you call them and tell them not to mail it. Next thing you know, it's on your credit card 3 months. I'm saying I'll forget. I guess sometimes our system stuff is so, I don't know. It's all good. It seems like we should have had a bigger discussion. Did I miss a discussion previously, or is
No,
this?
we haven't.
Just came up.
It just came up. And I agree that the timing's not ideal, because this is a communication they had with Dr. Falv, and I said, here's our first test of our policy, and now we've got this really short time frame for
I would
us to
imagine
act.
if we find it problematic, we won't be alone. So it'll be
No, I don't think
it'll
we've
be
been
some
alone.
general
Correct.
abandonment of that as a project and the way it's working or something.
And
Well, and
it's-
if we have to
yeah.
prepare for it anyway, there will be a cost associated with us preparing for the system regardless. If we get $10 a student, there's potential for, at least I can see potential
To
for.
help offset
Help
some
offset
of
the
our.
additional costs that we have to prepare for anyway, so.
Now, what we'll do is we'll continue to monitor, and these funds, as they come in, they'll come through state aid, and so we'll put them aside in a separate account stream so that we can track them and not spend anything until feel confident.
Can I assume that the grant is fairly prepped already, if it has to be delivered on the 20th?
This is a little bit different in that there's not an actual where you would write a narrative for it and fill out a financial
So
section.
this is a matter for $10 a student
going and
signing a
checking a
piece of
box.
paper. Well,
And
then I
checking a
think
box
it's worth
online.
doing.
Want to make a motion to that effect?
I would like to move this forward to the full board for approval.
Support.
Any further questions?
Yeah, call the roll. Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Geetson?
Yes.
Dr. Falk?
Yes.
Motion carried.
And what we can do is we can provide updates as we're working through this to you, so that you know what's going on with that. And then our third action item is our revised warm, safe, and dry projects, and so I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Clomperens.
Good morning. The list that was in your packet is a modified warm, safe, and dry project listing. A couple of the changes on the form are we showed a column what we've completed to date in 12-13, which totals a little under $500,000. What we've identified in the column projected in 12-13 is the remaining $3.5 million we have until our next collection next August. And the projects are modified to fit that, primarily based on the proposed transformation plan. So you'll see in there, there's changes to Aberdeen, to Sherwood, to Stocking. There's certain changes to Central, Creston. Those are the primary ones that we need warm, safe, and dry dollars for. We've always had way more projects in warm, safe, and dry than dollars available. So the next column, the next priority is what would be on the list next. And our goal is to do our work less than our estimated amount. So If we can be efficient, we'd like to be able to pull the next priority dollars and projects over. So like before, we're not asking for approval of the whole sheet, but we would like to have approval of the
Second column?
12, 13, and through 13, 14. So if things change that we need to move around a little bit, that those projects are already identified as priorities.
I have a question.
Yeah, oh, go ahead, Jen.
There's a lot of money being held to 16, 17. Is this a use it or lose it type of funding?
Well, I don't know exactly at the end if there's a time frame. There is not an annual time frame. We could save it all till the end if we needed to.
But it's not like the other bond dollars that we had to exhaust them by the end of the period.
Correct.
That is correct. Okay. Because my concern is that there's kind of a, and I know that money doesn't spend like that. Usually it has to spend kind of evenly.
That's why we keep reevaluating with priorities, because you'll see, we've got probably twice as many projects listed as dollars, total dollars that'll be available.
Okay.
Oh, I know you're moving, part of the projected for next year will be the removal and relocation of the playground equipment in several instances.
At Wellerwood and West Leonard,
Mhm.
those are identified.
Okay, why, and this is just I understand that needs to be done. Why is it so much to move playground equipment?
Playground equipment is very expensive, and the criteria of how you mount it and how you take it out and take it apart, and the Wellerwood has a safety surface that goes with it.
Okay. All right, great.
And I believe both of those are preschool,
Yes,
which has a lot higher scrutiny.
that's why we're moving them, because the pre-Ks are moving and they need to go with them.
Okay.
The one other thing I'd like to mention is, following this list, pending board action tonight, we will be preparing requests for proposals from construction managers and architects for some key projects in here. Since we don't have the schedule for the new finance committee and board schedule, our intent is to bring those on the purchasing agenda at the proposed January 21st board meeting. So they would be acted on prior to, most likely, the next finance committee. That would be specific to, there's stocking and we'll group Central Central, Aberdeen, and Wellerwood together. The big one would be stocking. We need to move quickly on that one. And all that construction management work and architectural work is eligible under warm, safe, and dry.
We have a motion?
Motion to approve the amended warm, safe, and dry schedule.
Support. Any further questions?
I think that's voice.
So there'll also be an opportunity at that point for the full board to be honest, I spent a lot of time, but it didn't occur to me to focus on those two columns as the specific approval that we were doing now. So there'll be time when it goes before the full board to ask questions regarding it post-approval of the transformation plan, right?
Typically, we haven't taken the revisions of this priority list to the full board. It's just stopped at Finance Committee.
Okay.
But we can do that for information.
Okay. Yeah, I think that might be a review in January going forward, post-transformation, just to, an understanding of, what was in.
I would think a good time would be at January 21st if we're going to take some things. Without going to finance, that would be a good chance to have that discussion.
Yeah, excellent.
Are you ready for me to call? Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Geetson?
Yes.
Dr. Fowle?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, first under the reports section is an update on the IB Art School. at our November Finance Committee, Dr. Falv requested an update on where we're at with that. I have a few updates. The team has gotten together and are starting to look at ways to reduce the budget that was initially presented to you a few months back. They're still in the process of that. I've seen a very preliminary draft of it. I had a few questions and am pushing back, and they are continuing to work together as a team. They have not gotten back together to go through this draft update budget as a team, so I did not feel comfortable presenting something to you. Some of the ways they're looking at reducing the costs or a gradual introduction of the preschool instead of just full force on 3 through 5th grade. They were looking at maybe phasing in the preschool. Also looking at the possibility for additional slots for the GSRP grant, and kind of wondering what's going to happen at the state level for that. But even if there wasn't a change at the state level, is there potential for us to capture additional slots? And so could some of the 4-year-old slots be used for that? Also trying to make sure we're consistent in the 3-year-olds and what we do for them compared to what we're doing for the Montessori 3-year-olds. We certainly have set a precedent with the 3-year-olds in Montessori, so I want to remain consistent so that we're fair with everybody. We also met, I don't think it was last week, I think it was the week before, with the potential consultant to do the feasibility study. So that was an interesting conversation. Mr. Helmholt, Mrs. Evans, and myself met with the consultant, and what she shared was that the feasibility study itself could take 3 to 4 months, and that would entail things such as sitting down individually. Her team would sit down individually with some of the potential donors and just to kind of share the proposed project with them, get a feel for is there interest, and then there would be a second part, the kind of the fundraising component of it, and she had indicated that could take anywhere up to 18 months for the fundraising. So those are the 2 big areas that I have for the update for the IB Arts School. I believe we received a proposal in an email at the end of last week from potential consultant to do the feasibility study, so we're looking through that now as we speak.
Is there an anticipated date as to whether they'd sign a contract with the?
Well, the contract would have to go through you first and be approved because it's, I want to say it was over $20,000.
Right.
It's right at the edge
Right.
where it would probably need to be. So we just need to look at it, share it with the superintendent, and then move forward as quickly as possible because we certainly don't want to wait on it. That'd take too long.
On the first part, the plans are to begin with the preschool and phase in the other grades, or to begin with the other grades and phase in the preschool?
Well, for the budgeting component, one of the ways they were looking at saving costs was to begin with the whole school, but phase in the preschool instead of starting the number of sections.
Oh.
So instead of starting right away with 3 sections, maybe we would only start with 1 section or 2 sections.
But they've looked at different options, and the last one that we provided cost numbers for was to start with some level of pre-K and build up. But I'm not sure they've made a determination how they want to look at that.
Okay, I think there's a meeting behind the meeting here.
I see that.
I apologize. I always have a difficult time trying to, follow Robert's rules, orders, and whatnot. And that discussion earlier about the grant thing, I had a difficult time articulating that. I want to bring a point, and I didn't know how to appropriately do it. And John's my little advisor there.
Okay.
Not already, John. What do I need to say now?
Well, you can ask to go back and discuss it if there's anything that needs to change. You can ask for a motion for
Can we do that after
consideration.
we finish the IB Arts?
Yeah, but I apologize.
Questions regarding the report, the IB Arts update? Ask your question, Mr. Ross, regarding that?
Yeah, I apologize on the grant deal. My mind was wandering a little bit because I noticed, I guess, when I was attempting to articulate earlier the issue about when I asked about when I gave the analogy of the magazine, I was talking about how we may forget that we have this opt-out option. My concern, actually, my mind wandered to looking at Mr. Atkins up there for a minute, and because I was making a note to myself about this transformation stuff, have a conversation about, boots on the ground sort of work. You know what I mean? And that's sort of been sort of on my head a lot over the weekend. How we're really going to do this thing. The real boots on the ground stuff. So when we were talking about the grant piece, what I had a hard time articulating is you made a statement about meeting requirements. And I understand that. And when we talk about boots on the ground stuff and what we're really trying to do with this transformation plan, for us it's checking the box here, but that's some boots on the ground. Well, who knows how many hours someone else is going to have to, this is a state grant, I got a meeting I got to go to, And I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. And that's, I guess, the sort of real talk that, I don't know, that I guess systematically I want us to start trying to change. So I didn't want to belabor something that seemed minuscule, but that was the spirit behind that. And excuse me.
My only concern is that we have to execute on this, whether we get money to do it or not, is how I understand it, right?
We have to do something to make sure we can meet the online growth assessment.
So the meetings that you're referring to are happening because of the online growth assessments, not because of the grant?
Well,
Is that correct?
I don't know how many meetings will be involved with this. That's what I'm not certain of. So, great concern that you raise. I agree, because a lot of times when you join grants, you participate in grants, there are meetings that are held, and it does pull staff away. But I also think that it's a great way to hear what everybody else is doing across the state, or how is this working with them, and as you pull the expertise across the state. But I hear what you're saying, and so those are the things, Mr. Ross, that this team that we have to represent our district are looking at and will continue to look at. And I agree, if it's too overwhelming to participate, and if this isn't going to benefit GRPS, then that's certainly something that we're going to look at, and not just participate just to participate, if you will, if it's going to harm us.
And I guess I want to say that part of the impetus for making this policy was this recognition that staff time was a resource that needed to be valued, and not just because we get money expend that staff time. So I think it's a really valid question that you're asking, Reynard. So, but
I don't know, we kind of have a culture of meetings. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just a reality. And I think if we're really going to wrap ourselves around any sort of plan, certain parts of the culture needs to change. And I'm not saying I'm against this at all, but that's just, where I was stumbling with, and why I just felt annoyed that, and then maybe that annoyance is with whoever released it just before Thanksgiving, or maybe, or me not reading something before, and I don't know. So, but, it is what it is. It is what it is, but I just thought it was important that be understood. That's all.
I agree. And like I said earlier, we'll provide updates as we're moving through the process, just so that you continue to be informed on where we're at with this grant and how it's working for us before.
my question is how they'll do it if they change the school aid act to follow the student with a voucher system. How will growth assessments be done then? But we'll worry about that if that happens.
Right.
We're still surviving, I guess.
Shall we?
There's a very similar grant in healthcare as well for technology to meet the requirements of the meaningful use work. So this is a grant style that I'm very familiar with. And it is just to allow those smaller districts who don't have buying power and things of that nature to be able to execute on. It's an attempt to actually fund an unfunded mandate, so at least that's how I'm reading it.
So that's greater good to a force there.
Except for
Sort
they're
of.
taking it out of the
I
school
can
aid
roll with
fund.
that. I can roll with that, though.
Okay.
Any more questions, discussions on this? All right. Go on to
right.
financial statements.
November financial statements. There wasn't anything that jumped out at us when we completed the November financial statements that caused concern on where we were at. We actually, the one positive note is our investment income is at 84% of the budget. We weren't expecting to be able to yield as much in interest this year, but working with some of our approved institutions, we, believe it or not, have been getting slightly better yield. So we're excited about that. So when we bring forward a budget amendment to January's meeting, we'll be increasing that budget
Nice.
a little bit. So that's, every little bit helps.
Yeah.
We're thinking we're gonna come in about $20,000 higher. So we will take it.
10 in the washing machine.
It was kind of like finding a $10 bill in a washing machine. Which is, it's a day when 40 basis points you get excited about, but, you know, that's about what we're earning, which is great. We don't really have a diversified portfolio right now because the rates are just terrible, and they continue to say they're gonna hover as low as they are, at least through 2014, so we're doing the best that we can. I don't know if you had any questions on any of the statements?
Doesn't look like it.
All right, next on our list is the warm, safe, and dry update.
In your packet, there's update sheets on the different projects. We did not get the summary sheet included, and I have copies if you need that. The roof projects are wrapping up, although the frost one is still underway. But we're closing those up as weather starts to change on us. We are still on budget with everything we've done. We're tracking real close to the original budgets within, total of all we've done within $1,500.
Oh, that's excellent.
So, right now, nothing new will come until after action on transformation, so we know what our next step is. And the other one that's in here that will stay the same with or without transformation is the Creston Energy Management Control System. We're proceeding with that one. The 2 fire alarms at Fountain and Congress are complete. The roof at Ottawa is on punch list, at Congress is in punch list, and then Brookside and Frost are the newer ones that are underway yet.
Questions on that? Okay. Next on our list is the budget calendar update. Not a significant amount of activity since our November meeting. We continue in the business office to work to project out average salaries, because as you know, again, that we budget on average salaries. We're really kind of holding and pending tonight's vote on the transformation plan, which after that, then a lot of work will begin on the development of that budget. We are looking at working with the superintendent and maybe doing a slightly different process for budgeting for this next year, that really, not to go to a zero-based budget, but to really look at how we've been spending our resources and ensuring that they're going to the appropriate places so we can get as much money into the classroom as possible. And we don't have a whole lot of money in non-salary type items. You know, most of us, or most of our budget is sitting in salary and benefits. So we'll look at the non-salary a little bit, but we'll also look at the salary and positions. And do we have the staff in the right places to best meet the needs of our students and to move us forward like we would like to do, and to see our academic achievement increase greatly. So that's where we're at with the budget calendar. We'll have another update again in January, at which time we'll also bring a budget amendment. Really land on where we're going to be at for this year. Do you have any questions on that? All right, legislative update. Mr. Helmholtz is not here.
Can you run through that? I can-
Mr. O'Connor, you can, and then I want to just highlight something on the personal property tax as well.
Well, in the marathon session of last week in lame duck, there were 3 pending bills which all did not receive action, including Education Achievement Authority, the parent trigger bill and the parental choice bill, allowing parents to opt students out of classrooms with teachers who have been determined to be ineffective. Those all died under their own weight. There was a personal property tax pass through, which I'll let Ms. Davis talk about that. We know that the EAA and the other legislation may come back up in the next session here, along with the potential school aid rewrite and the super choice bill. So we'll have to continue to be diligent about our actions in Lansing. I know that we'll probably be planning a legislative day in Lansing at some point, as we'll have several new representatives, 2 here in Kent County and 2 in Ottawa County from the West Michigan delegation, or maybe 1 from Muskegon too. So we'll get that on the calendar soon, so we can get in front of them and let them know what GRPS is all about.
Who's the second one?
There's one in Ottawa County, Rep. Victory. In Kent County, it's former Walker Mayor Robert Hewlin.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Obviously, Winnie Brinks is one. And then in Muskegon, Colleen Lamonte was elected, who is assumed to be a very good friend of education, as she is a teacher, or was a teacher. And there's one in Ottawa County, Roger Victory.
Really? I went to grade school with Roger. Interesting.
And then
You may have to rekindle that grade school friendship.
I have to. I'm already plotting as we're speaking.
Start calling in those cards right now.
Raj, remember me? Wendy Verheck? Good.
How was your relationship?
Check this one. With the personal property tax, it's my understanding, and still working on the fine detail of it, that almost everything has 100% guaranteed replacement, subject to the vote of the people. I'm not quite sure I understand that component, but the one thing that wasn't 100% guaranteed was sinking fund, which is our warm, safe, and dry. They put in there that would only be 80% guaranteed. So we would lose some resources for our warm, safe, and dry projects. So we're continuing to work to get better detail, so we can get better understanding for the personal property tax component. The other legislation that was passed talked about critical shortage of positions, so those positions in school districts that we may have difficulty finding folks. They're looking at redoing this critical shortage list, but they also snuck some language in there that says that contracting out through third party for substitute teachers is now going to be subject to paying retirement costs. So that one caught my eye. I hadn't heard about that one at all. Mesa sent something in an email on Friday, so I automatically called RISD to find out what's going on with that. And they are looking at it too, because that was news to them. So it would be that we would have to pay the state retirement costs for contracting out our substitute teachers.
but charter schools don't have to.
As if the substitute teachers were the reason for the underfunding of the MIPSERS program and not requiring everybody in the state to participate. So I don't have
That
any
just
more
seems like
information
double
than that.
dipping.
It might move us more in the direction of looking at housing our own substitute teachers as well. It might,
Well,
you know,
you would start to look at, right, so if we're now also going to, besides the administrative fee we pay to PESG, who
Right.
we currently
Right.
contract with, if we're also going to have to pay retirement costs, without having any conversations with PSG, it may be that we just say, we'll
might be,
end that agreement with them and bring that back in-house,
right, might be,
which would be a staffing concern on our end. I mean, we'd have to look at, when you look at staff capacity
right.
and what people can do.
I know on the, back to personal property tax, I know that, as you said, the sinking fund dollars are not guaranteed at 100%. I know municipalities, they were also not guaranteed at 100%, and they have the ability to raise the revenue through a millage or bond. Are we privy to that option as well? Not that I'm advocating that we go ask the voters for anything at this point in time.
Yeah, I'm not sure,
Just wondering
because
what
the
our
voters
flexibility-
just approved a 1 mil. So it's different from the voter-approved debt, like our 2004 millage, where we would levy the number of mills we need to meet that obligation. The approval for the sinking fund was simply a 1 mill. I'm not sure if you can go out and do concurrent
Right.
requests for
Not
the
that-
same
not-
type
not
of
that
thing.
I'm advocating for it, or think we need it, or
Yeah,
until we
no,
know
I'm-
kind of what
yeah,
the scenario plays out at.
And I haven't looked at that yet, but.
Very good.
So yes, it's been a whirlwind in Lansing,
Yeah.
That would be
in
an
education
understatement.
again.
What's that bill number? What number is that one?
Yeah, with
Uh,
the substitute.
The substitute one, I don't know, I will shoot that to you in an email.
So it's only public schools then.
Do you have the bill number? Is it House Bill or Senate? House Bill 5261.
And it's a phase in,
So-
right? As far as it's like that, a phase in over 10 years to do this transition from, it's very complicated and difficult to understand.
Does it say?
Yeah. Maybe I'm,
For the third party? And
oh, no, I'm talking about the PPT.
Oh,
talking
no,
about different
the
things.
third party.
I don't-
So,
I believe the HB 5261 is related to the payment of retirement costs on third-party
All right.
contracting of substitutes.
so I just have, I'm getting confused. Our majority of our substitutes are replacing teachers that are ill for the day or a couple weeks.
Or if there's a professional development activity or
Right.
something along those lines.
So they're being paid, right? Those teachers are being paid. Our teachers are being
Yes.
paid while they're sick and while they're in professional development. And we're gonna pay into MIPSers for the substitutes. The substitutes get to collect, on retirement?
If they are your employees,
But
they would
if they're
count
P,
towards
if
their
they're,
retirement.
if they're not,
They're
If they are not,
PESG.
no.
but we have to pay in anyway.
Yeah. That's
That
what I-
makes 0 cents.
And
I
public
mean,
school academies aren't required to do the same when they
are
hire
not required to do
substitute
But, I mean,
teachers.
it's
from
double
PE.
dipping because you're paying for the teacher
Well,
and you have to pay for the substitute.
even when we had the subs in-house and they were our employees, we still had to pay the retirement cost. So every dollar that you spent on every salary dollar you spent, you still had to pay the retirement rate, whatever that was at
Right.
that
Right.
time. So even when the subs were in-house, it was the same thing.
But so, contracting it out was in part motivated, I'm imagining, to mitigate that cost.
Correct.
And now that incentive has been removed.
Has been removed.
Yeah.
Sounds like a best practice if you ask me.
Yeah, I think so. I think they've unwittingly removed privatization as a best practice, so.
All right.
Well, that is all we had for you today.
Anything else?
Anything for us?
You.
Great. Thank you.
See you in a few hours.
It just seems like that's what happened.
Oh, and Jane's last committee meeting here, Grand Rapids Public Schools.
Don't all cry.